And we are about to be live right now. All right. We are live. Hey, everybody.
Wow.
Hey, everybody. It's me. I'm back. Welcome, welcome, welcome. It's been a very long time since I have done a presentation for all things football from a lady's perspective. Let me just share this really quick to my timeline so that we can get this going. And I hope that everyone has had a great Thanksgiving. This is going to be a huge, huge, huge relaunch for us. Give me 1 second. Let me go to my page and then we will be all set. Let's see here. I'm gonna copy my link here. All right, and give me 1 second, everybody, as I'm getting ready. Let me just pull this up. I know it's been a long time since we have all talked football. And let me share this to my friend, my guest tonight. Let me share it to his page. All righty. All right. Welcome to the first edition in a very long time of All Things Football from a Lady's Perspective. I'm your host, Sonia Pearson Anderson. Good evening. Happy Thanksgiving holiday, all of that good stuff. Please feel free to share this stream as it pertains to the NFL and even college news. Tonight, I am joined by a very special guest to relaunch this blog that you will be able to see on YouTube at another time, where we discuss NFL news from the lady's perspective. But tonight I have a very special guest, Mr. Anthony Fernandez, who is a member of NYG for Life, the New York Giants fan club. Mr. Fernandez, welcome to my show.
Well, hello, Sonia. How are you?
Hi, I am doing well. Thank you so much for joining us on this great night. So we're going to start with just a little small introduction of yourself. Tell us a little bit about yourself, who your team is. We see you're repping that Giants, how long you've been a Giants fan, and all of that good stuff.
Okay, well, again, my name is Anthony Fernandez. I've been a Giants fan, I would say, all my life. I like to claim all my life. from the womb to now, I've been a Giants fan, diehard Giants fan, and I am a diehard Ohio State fan. As you see in the back, we got a big game against Michigan tomorrow, and part of the NYG for Life group in Atlanta, the biggest Giants group, I would say, nationwide. A great group to be a part of, and so love football, love college football, love NFL. So I'm just honored to be on here and see how we can get some talking points together on our football Sundays and Saturdays.
Yeah, football. I cannot believe we're actually back. We're in person, which is a great thing. We've definitely chopped it up over the last few weeks, especially with our team squaring off. I had a less than favorable outcome.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Giants are there. And I'm definitely excited that we are able to sit down and chop it up over some NFL college football talk right now. I'm very excited that you're joining me. We talk so much about football as a whole that it's only right that I just go ahead and kick this platform off. I know a lot of people have not been used to seeing me, so this is also shared on my All Things Football platform. We are on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook that you are watching us on now. And Mr. Fernandez, if you need to take a moment and do any sharing, I did tag you in this live so that it should show up on your timeline.
Absolutely.
So if you all just give us
it already.
Oh, awesome. Give us a moment to get some things together here, just some technical things to square out, and then we're going to get started because I know everybody is really excited about this season. This is the what is the word I want to look for? The cusp of the season, so to speak. We're over the halfway point. Teams that have not shown improved in the past, such as my Panthers, have to show improve now. Other teams are either a non-factor, like Detroit, who has just won their first game yesterday against the Chicago Bears. Was it overtime, Anthony? I can't remember.
Well, Detroit lost that game yesterday.
Oh, so they never won a game. So
they just
but
had
I
a
think
tie
it's
against Pittsburgh.
yeah, but I think it still went overtime. I know Matt Nagy was announced to be terminated regardless after yesterday. So we haven't seen any breaking news that has happened, but we've got a lot of NFL news to cover right now, starting with last night's Thanksgiving matchup with the Saints and the Buffalo Bills, as well as the earlier game, the Dallas Cowboys, the 4 p.m. game versus the Las Vegas Raiders. I have to really get used to saying Las Vegas. I'm so used to saying Oakland. But that game was definitely one for the road, as the Cowboys lost a second in a row, and the Saints have lost their second in a row. And there was an earlier game, which was the Detroit-Chicago game, where Detroit is now 0-10, if I'm correct.
I want to say 0-9-1. I think so.
They had a tie.
Because they do have it. They had a tie with Pittsburgh. I want to say about a couple weeks ago.
Wow. Mm-hmm. Speaking of Pittsburgh, that's a huge toss-up with the AFC North.
Yeah,
that's a huge toss-up with the AFC North. So what do you think going into, this is now week 11? Is it week 11? We have an extra week this year because of the 18th week that we've added that will take us past the New Year's week. And additionally, I think that's going to push the Super Bowl down towards Valentine's now, as opposed to the first week of February. I'm so used to it being literally like the same week of my birthday that that's going to be a huge difference. So now I can, have a birthday free of any sports, because that would be an off week for whoever's going to be playing as they relax and prep for the Super Bowl.
Absolutely.
What's going on with the Giants? What's the newest news? I heard something about Saquon being questionable.
Well, yeah, he's going to be questionable every week, considering he's, as injury prone as he is. But we just got rid of our offensive coordinator, which was definitely needed. So the next few weeks from this point on to the end of the season is going to be, everybody's kind of under a microscope, because we're going to see, was it the offensive coordinator's fault? Can we blame him for all of our woes, or is it the coaching, or just the team, in all? So it's gonna be interesting to see how the Giants, I guess, try to turn the season around. I think it's a little bit too late. I personally feel that we won't. We need to beef up in certain areas and slack off in certain areas. I think we're kind of a really unbalanced team, and it's showing. Joe Judge, I like him as a coach. Jason Garrett, I wasn't too much of a fan of his as an offensive coordinator. Daniel Jones, I was up in the air, but he's not really on my good side right now. It's just going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting how this season goes, and the changes they're going to make in the offseason. It's always the offseason you're looking at, especially when you have a team doing as bad as we are. The offseason is huge. Most fans are starting to look towards that, only having 3 games under our belt, and we're basically mid-season, going into the third quarter of the season. It's disappointing, but it's also interesting. I'm curious to see how we're going to try to dig ourselves out of this hole and become a better team. Again, we're a 4-time Super Bowl championship team, so we're used to winning. I joke with you all the time about that. We're used to winning.
Yeah.
So these last 5 to 6 years has been horrible, because we've been getting our butts kicked. And I think Giant fans are becoming fed up. You know, a chance has to. I mean, a change has to happen at some point.
So where do you see Jason Garrett going? Because that was the offensive coordinator for the Giants, former Dallas head coach. He's only been with you all a year, 2 years. Did you all pick him up right after he was released from Dallas?
Yeah, he was picked up after the release from Dallas. I want to say a year after, or I think it was that same year, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not. I don't know. I mean, that's another, you know, that's another questionable thing. I mean, really, to be honest with you, the way we are, I don't even think I'm too concerned of where Jason Garrett lands. He wasn't the best, offense. He's a nice guy. I mean, granted, nice, but I mean, when you're a team that hasn't won in years, and you keep having bad season after bad season, you keep going through coach after coach, then I think there's a deeper problem. General manager, up to ownership. There's a deeper issue, with the Giants that needs to be figured out. Are we gonna figure it out? I have no idea. They invested so much money on the offensive side of the ball, invested in the defensive side of the ball. In the draft, didn't draft the positions we needed, the trenches, which is offensive linemen. A team with a great offensive line will be a great team, on offense. I mean, you got guys that are super talented. Would be in the NFL if you wasn't, but if you give them time, you give a quarterback time in the pocket, he can get the ball out and get it to a receiver. He'll be a lot more successful. And considering all of Daniel Jones' troubles, he needs a stellar offensive line to be considered a top tier quarterback. So, again, it's going to be interesting how that happens. Daniel Jones, yes, Daniel.
Yeah, I'm kind of partial to these rookies that they've brought in. Speaking of Daniel Jones, Justin Fields from the Chicago Bears, absolutely feel bad for him. Such a talent coming into the league. And I think I read a couple of weeks back where he was noted as just feeling absolute frustration. He was one of the top drafts. 7, 8, 9 picks from last year were the Atlanta Falcons were first. They were number 7. Carolina Panthers were number 8, and the Chicago Bears were number 9. Both the Falcons and the Panthers passed on a quarterback during a time that they both could have used a good quarterback. And so Chicago picked up Justin Fields. And I think that would be perhaps the reason why Nagy is on a chopping block, because they brought in such a promising quarterback, yet he has been very limited in his production. But we haven't heard a lot about Chicago, even from the defensive side right now. Chicago Bears as a whole has always been known as a defensive team, but we just have not heard a lot about that defense. Khalil Mack, we haven't heard really a peep out of Chicago. They've pretty much been under the radar this entire season. Like I said, they struggled yesterday, and that score was actually 16-14 in a very tight-knit game against the Detroit Lions, who are, how do you say it? You don't say undefeated, just defeated. Is that what you say when it's a consistent loss every single week? Like, what is the opposite of undefeated? So, and like we talked about earlier, Buffalo just annihilated. I mean, marched all over the New Orleans Saints on yesterday in New Orleans, 31-6. They have not been the same since that Jameis Winston injury against Tampa Bay a few weeks back. Jameis is out, I believe, the remainder of the season. They were relying on Trevor Siemian, and they were also relying on Taysom Hill. I personally knew when Drew Brees left that organization, they just were not going to be the same. I'm not saying that they are super bad, but now that Jameis, who was the experienced quarterback, has gone down, it's showing. Everyone pretty much shows. They have Alvin Kamara that's out right now with an injury. Is it Michael Thomas? Someone else is out from that same team. And so it's showing how heavily they relied on Alvin Kamara and Michael Thomas, even in the absence of a solid quarterback. I know that Taysom Hill was always brought in for these obscured plays. I like to talk about trick plays because he comes in as a secondary to kind of like do a trick pass or what have you. But then the next thing you know, they've scored. But now since Drew Brees has entered retirement, they just aren't there anymore. Your camera went down, Mr.
Oh, sorry about
Fernandez.
that. Yeah, there it is. There it is. Yeah.
Yeah, so they just aren't there anymore. They are now number 3 in the NFC South with my Carolina Panthers advancing over them. Both teams are 5-6. However, the Panthers are 2-0 in the division, having already defeated New Orleans earlier in the season, and they've already defeated the Atlanta Falcons in one matchup. They have a second matchup coming up on December 12th in Charlotte, Bank of America Stadium. But as such, Tampa Bay, who also has dropped a game, is now 7-3, I believe. So they are only like a game or two apart from Carolina. The entire NFC South is a toss-up, as the Falcons have remained at the bottom. The Panthers, the Saints, and the Falcons are below 500 right now. And so it's a clear vision if the Panthers can win out. Then, of course, Tampa will take the second spot. But if the Panthers continue on the road that they have been, Tampa will remain in number 1 position. And it's a toss-up for the 3rd and 4th positions between the Panthers and Falcons. So definitely hoping, the Panthers and the Saints, definitely hoping that we can maintain our position where we are now and actually excel, because we would love to win out. We're facing Miami on Sunday in Miami. Is Tua still going to be out on Sunday?
I don't know. I got to check that out.
He was
I think
injured.
He played last Sunday.
He was injured last Sunday. Let's see what we got here. Got a few people chiming in, and we want to hear your comments out there on Facebook as we're live streaming. Feel free to drop your questions or comments about your favorite team or your least favorite team in the chat, and we'll address those as Anthony and I are continuing our discussion about NFL news. Welcome to All Things Football from a Lady's Perspective. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Sonia Pearson Anderson, your host, with my special guest, Mr. Anthony Fernandez of the New York Giants Club, NYG for Life, here in Atlanta, while we're discussing the top NFL news of this week on my relaunch. Welcome. All right, so moving along, I think you were right about the Pittsburgh comment earlier, because I see their record is 5-4-1. Mike Tomlin, is he on the chopping block this year again, or what's going to happen?
He shouldn't be. Mike Tomlin has always been a sustainable coach. I mean, Mike Tomlin has done a lot with less over the years. Mm-hmm. Of course, they need a quarterback. I'm not too keen on Pittsburgh with all their roster moves and everything going on. But looking in from the outside, I think Mike Tomlin is a hell of a coach. He's gotten a tough ride. The ownership there in Pittsburgh, they are really loyal to their coaches. They don't have a lot of turnover. And again, Mike Tomlin had to do a lot with less. I mean, he built a really stellar defense, great offensive line. They do need some more offensive weapons. They do need a new quarterback. I don't see Mike Tomlin. If he is on a chopping block, he won't be there. He won't be out very long, which I don't feel. I think Tomlin is going to be a Steeler for a very long time.
Well, he has been on a chopping block in the past. If you remember when Marvin from the Detroit Lions, Marvin Lewis from the Cincinnati Bengals, when he was terminated back in 2017, 2018, Mike Tomlin was on the chopping block then. In fact, every season that they speak about them not making the playoffs, because Pittsburgh was one of these teams that has all this brass, all these rings, but they're just not producing in the last decade. They're just not that same solid team. They looked promising. What was that, 3-4 years ago? And then it was the same situation. And so Mike Tomlin is highly regarded in the league, but I honestly feel that if they don't pull it off this year, I'm going to have to disagree. I think they're going to start talking shop against his contract. I don't know if he's how long he has with his contract or whatever, but I just don't see him continuing to be that coach. Now, I know there is this stat in the NFL that they have to have so many minority coaches. Same thing with Ron Rivera. Mike Tomlin is one. During the time Marvin Lewis was still there. And I think Chuck Pagano is of a, different ethnicity as well. But, if you start performing too bad, they just find other people who can fill those voids, those positions, because it's literally like musical chairs sometimes in the NFL. You will see players shuffled around, you will see coaches, offensive coordinators. A good example is Matt Patricia, who left the Patriots to take the head coaching job in Detroit. They turned into a dumpster fire, and Matt Patricia, I think, is now back with New England as their offensive coordinator again. So he had to go back home. So it's literally any given Sunday. It's literally a toss-up. So what are your playoff predictions at this point based off of what you're seeing in the league? Like, what if you had to choose today, top teams from each division, AFC North, West, East, NFC South, West, North, who do you think, or even not even necessarily pulling from each division, but just pulling some of the top teams in period? Like if you had to pull 4 top teams that you could pretty solidly say they are not going to the wild card, but going to the actual playoffs, like true contenders of the NFC, AFC titles, who would you say?
On the NFC side, it would definitely be Arizona. Green Bay for sure. I think they'll be there. I think Dallas will be there for sure. I can say that. Let's see. NFC North, NFC East, NFC South. Of course, the Rams. I don't even know how I forgot that. The Rams will be there. Those are 4 teams I can say that are definitely going. Out of the AFC, I mean, you got Baltimore. New England will be there. You got Baltimore, New England. AFC South is a toss-up. I really like the Colts. I think they're budding at the right time. Tennessee, they're just, they're hammered with injuries. They're kind of on they're kind of going down. The AFC is such a toss-up right now. I mean, Kansas City is starting to bud, starting to come alive. But really, I would really hope, even considering what Baltimore, the injuries that they sustained at the beginning of the season. I mean, they lost a lot of key players, and they're still doing well. I really want to see Baltimore there at the end in the AFC. I really do. I think they deserve it. I'm a big Lamar Jackson fan. In the NFC, I mean, the Rams are the team to beat. I mean, the Rams and the Cardinals probably going to be at the top of the 2 top tier teams coming out of the NFC. You still got to be careful with Tampa Bay. I forgot about them. But again, Tampa, Dallas, those type of teams, those are kind of tier 2 teams. But in the NFC, but if you're going to put in Green Bay, but tier 1 would be Arizona and the Rams. They're going to be tough to beat. Tough to beat.
Yeah, the Rams definitely with that quarterback change, the Jared Goff, Matt Stafford switch up was one that nobody really saw coming. The gunslinger coming to the West Coast and joining Sean McVay for the Rams. They have been pretty much unstoppable. The Rams right now are sitting pretty at 7-3, and they are at 700. They are 3-2 at home, and they are 4-1 on the road. Just a really, really, really good, solid team. And they're not a team I actually would have thought with a quarterback change like that would take on. But clearly, Matt Stafford has done his homework in the offseason and the OTAs, and he came in ready to rock and roll. Whereas Jared Goff in Detroit has not one game. And I will tell you, I'm shocked about that because Jared Goff to me was solid when he was with the Rams. You remember when they made like that run a year or 2 ago? They looked really, really good. I don't know what happened. There was a good chemistry between McVay and Goff. I think someone said they were friends. You know, McVay is one of the youngest coaches in the league, if not the youngest coach. He's still in his 30s. But something happened, kind of like a Tom Brady Belichick situation, real ugly divorce, as they say in the NFL. And Matt Stafford came out west and left the snow behind to sunny California. And Jared Goff went where he could not play golf in wintry Detroit. But you're really head on. I think Arizona, no one saw coming. They're going to have to really get healthy with Kyler Murphy right now. I think he's coming back Sunday. DeAndre Hopkins as well. They had some key injuries. Even when the Panthers played them, their defense coming into that game was ranked in the top 3, but their defense didn't look as good against the Panthers with Cam's homecoming on the road. And we actually won that game. We beat the Panthers, but Kyler should be coming back. It's shocking to see how good he is with the time he's been in the NFL. Kyler Murray, I'm talking about. He's awesome. But it just shows you how one key player can really shift the dynamics of a team. And it doesn't always have to be the quarterback. We know that with the whole New Orleans situation, because even with Taysom Hill, you know, and Simeon, they should have been decent. But with Alvin Kamara, kind of same with when Christian McCaffrey's out with the Panthers. We have not won one game that Christian was out. But when Christian is there, we won every game except for last week's matchup with the homecoming of Ron Rivera back to Bank of America. It was Ron's first return since his separation, I'll say it nicely, in 2018 from the Carolina Panthers. Ron assumed a role with the Washington football team. He battled cancer. He's overcome personal obstacles. I love Ron Rivera. Even though he's not our coach anymore, it was a homecoming. It was bittersweet because Cam and he are super close. It was Cam's first game in Charlotte, but in the end, 27-21, Washington would win that nail-biter game. And Ron Rivera, who has about 5 former Panthers on his team, Joey Slye, the kicker, Taylor Heineke, the quarterback, and the head coach. They had key persons from our former team, and they proved to be the better team on that day. As in fact, Cam rarely got out on the field because Heineke was just out there, like just so dramatic. I don't know if you saw him. Every time he got a first down, he's roaring and everything like a little baby cub. He never was like that when he was, you know, quarterbacking with us. But I guess he was trying to show Cam that, you know, he's here, and they wanted it and they got it. So you're right about that. I really thought Washington looked good for the NFC East. Personal feelings aside, the Cowboys are definitely a contender, but they are now 7-4. So because last Sunday, a lot of key teams who were looking good took losses, it placed teams like my team, who was in the wild card, the ability to stay in the wild card because everybody pretty much stayed the same. The Philadelphia Eagles, it's a huge difference in the NFC East. That's your division. They are 5-6, so that's a big difference from 7-4. But say they win on Sunday, then they become 500, and they're only one game away from being what Dallas is if Dallas doesn't start to win their games. So it's a big toss up. That division has always been a toss up as far as getting to 500 or who's going to be in the playoffs. Just, you know, relatively speaking. Kansas City, they have finally turned it around. For a long time, they did not look good. They definitely didn't look like the previous Super Bowl winners from 2 years ago. They didn't even look like Super Bowl contenders from last year, but looks like Mahomes is finally getting his bearings, and they are now 7-4. The Chargers are right on their tails, though. They are 6-4, and so are the Raiders at 6-5. And even the Broncos. That whole AFC West is a wild card, honestly. It could be anybody's game who goes there. Colts are right on the heels of Tennessee Titans. Derrick Henry has done his best to carry that team on. Marcus Mariota still the quarterback down there?
No. No, Derrick Henry, he's out for the season. You know, with that
Yeah,
foot, he had that
he
foot
showed
injury.
off while he right. He showed off while he
Yeah.
could. What was it, a couple of weeks?
He's been out. He's out for the season. I think he's been out for about 3 or 4 weeks now. They picked up
Yeah.
Adrian Peterson and just released him. Um, Tennessee just another one of those teams that just some bad luck. There's a lot of teams out there. I always use this. Me and my friends of mine, a couple of friends of mine, we use the statement: whoever's the healthiest at the end is going to be the victorious. Because you look at teams that's loaded like Arizona. Like I know I saw Arizona coming when they picked up AJ Green and JJ Watt and all those. They gave Kyler Murray a ton of weapons. They had an offensive line. Their defense is disgusting with Chandler Jones and Marcus Golden and all those. They're vicious. So JJ went out as well. I think he's out for the season. He could
Yes.
possibly come back for the playoffs. But they were loaded. So again, that's another team. If Arizona's healthy and the Rams are not, the Rams lost Robert Woods even after picking up Odell Beckham. So that was a good pickup for them because they lost a key component of their offense. So they lost Robert Woods for the season, picked up Odell. So they should continue, but their defense is hell on wheels with Aaron Donald, Jalen Ramsey. They got a great help. They got a great pass rush and a really good secondary. So again, if those guys can stay healthy, then then sky's the limit. You still got Dallas. You can't really fault Dallas for that. I mean, last night they were down so many guys. I mean, Amari Cooper, being down Amari Cooper and CeeDee Lamb, that just hurt them tremendously. I know next man up, but you take away those guys, you take those guys away from the offense, you're an entirely different offense.
Entirely.
Entirely different. So, these teams got to get healthy. Teams are going to start budding towards the end of the season. And if they can stay healthy going into the postseason, they'll be victorious. Be careful with Green Bay. I think Green Bay if they stay healthy, they'll be okay as well. There's a lot of teams out there that are everything is tossed up. You can't really, I don't even have a clear favorite right now. I don't have a clear favorite at all. If I had to pick right now, I would say Arizona. Out of the AFC, I don't know. Again, Baltimore, possibly New England, they're balanced. The Chargers look good. Playoffs, you got to have experience. You talk about guys like, I know you have referred to, not Kyler Murray, excuse me. You were talking about the rookie quarterback, Justin Fields in Chicago. I think Justin Fields is going to be okay. It's his first year. He's got thrown into a position. Chicago made the playoffs last year, and then you get a new quarterback. You throw him in. They lost a couple of pieces last year too, but I think their offensive line is struggling. Once they get that fixed and get weapons around Justin, get some dogs on the defensive line, they're gonna be fine because Justin is a hell of a quarterback. And of course, you see the emblem behind me, so I am. I'm a big Justin Fields fan. Yeah. Oh, I was there. Yeah, but I think Justin Fields is gonna be fine. You just gotta give him some time.
I think they're definitely going to be, and I'm sorry, I was just looking at the comments a little bit, just a couple of people just putting stuff, and I'm trying to tag some names in because I couldn't remember to tag people when we first came on. I think they're going to be fine. I don't know who they would get to replace Nagy, though. They're up there in Chicago, honestly. I
don't know. I don't know if Nagy is going to, I don't know if they're going to fire him. I keep hearing rumors that they are. They should. I don't think Nagy is a really good coach. Not a really good coach. I'll say this. He's not a coach that's going to be able to take that team to the next level or the level that they need to be, that they deserve to be at. Chicago has a pretty decent team. They just need the right pieces. Just like any other team. I think the Giants have a really talented team. They just don't have the right pieces around to project that talent. Any team that can't protect the quarterback is a team that's bound to fail. I don't care how many superstars you have at wide receiver, running back. If you can't protect them on the offensive side of the ball, if your offensive line is terrible, you're not gonna last. These guys are much bigger. They're bigger. They're faster. You got about a good 2 to 3 seconds. If you can get a good 2 to 3 seconds in that pocket, then you got a decent offensive line. 4 seconds, then you can bake a cake back there. But that's pretty
Decent.
much what they're decent. That's what Tampa had when we played them. Tom Brady wasn't touched, not once, because I mean they invested into that offensive line, and that offensive line is what's gonna, just like last year, it took them willed them to victory. It's gonna will whoever is the better team to victory. You know, New England is another example. They don't have any superstars. Never had any superstars really. I mean, when you go
Mhm.
back, you can't really name a lot of guys that came out of New England that was just like, whoa, that just blew your mind. But they had awesome, excellent coaching. They had always had a balanced team and a very good offensive line throughout the years of their success. And that's why it was so successful.
Very successful. And it just comes down to really what the Belichick way. If you don't
Mhm.
get with that way, I mean, he literally takes players and shapes them and molds them. Tom Brady, classic example, was passed over during the draft. And I think he
Mhm.
was number 13 or something. And
No, he
Belichick got
went in the
him,
last round. Yeah. Mhm.
molded him, shaped him, and you gotta respect him. You don't have to love him, but you gotta give Tom Brady. He is the absolute GOAT. Everyone always thought it was because of the two of them together. Tom says, absolutely not. I'm going to use my initials and go to TB for TB. And we're going to
Mhm.
the Super Bowl. And everyone laughed. I laughed. I was like, oh, Tom don't want to come to the South. He don't know what the NFC South is about. He's been protected in the pocket up there in New England, but as soon as he comes to the South, we're gonna show him how we pop them down here. This where quarterbacks take it down here in the South. Like, look at Cam. You come out that pocket, that's it. Well, no. Tom got with what he had, and then he brought in AB. And the word was he even let AB stay with him. There was the word that Bruce Arians had stated he would never coach AB, but Tom was like, hey, just give him a chance. I'll even let him stay at my house during training or whatever, just so he can prove himself. And then he got Gronkowski, his best bud, out of retirement, who Gronkowski later admitted that he only retired to keep from being traded to Detroit because Matt Patricia was trying to make a deal where Gronkowski would have gone to Detroit when he went to Detroit. And so Gronk got word of it. Gronk says, no, I'm out. I think he did like one or two televised anchoring shows during season or whatever. And then there you have it. Tom calls him up out of retirement. Bam, they're in Tampa Bay. Tom has created his own squad and has reformed the Belichick way into the Brady way. So, I mean, I really thought they were contenders again for this year, but it's a real toss up because a lot of people during the OTAs and off season has actually taken an opportunity to say, let's look at what Tampa Bay is doing. We cannot let Tom Brady go back and get, what is this, number 7? He's on the second hand of rings.
Mhm.
So, all right, the difficult question. Cam Newton returns to the Carolina Panthers.
Mhm.
I will yield the floor to you, Mr. Fernandez, because I'm partial. Everybody that knows me knows I blow a lot of smoke, even when we lose, and I'm still screaming, we champs. Till the end, I will not negatively speak about my team. What are your thoughts about Cam's return to the NFL and more specifically to the Carolina Panthers?
It was a great morale booster to the Panthers. I mean, I think y'all had the most people in the crowd when on his return than y'all had all season, if I'm not mistaken. It was crazy. So I mean, anytime you can boost the team morale, that helps. Um, he's still a decent quarterback. I still think he's better than a lot of quarterbacks that's in the league now. Um, and moving forward, he's going to be great if they can give him the way. Again, it just depends on how they build, the second rebuild around him. How long do they plan on keeping him? How much do they plan on giving him weapons wise, to help him succeed? Um, Carolina loves the guy. It was a great move.
We
It was a
love
great
him.
move by Matt Rule. Yeah, they loved him. I mean,
We
so the
love him.
morale in Carolina is great. Business is booming, which is the main thing. The seats are starting to fill back up. The thing is, the pressure that's on Cam, you just got to start winning. You guys have a pretty decent team. You just got to win. If you can win, if Cam can win out and somehow grab a wild card spot, that would be great for him moving on the next season. You know, it can be like kind of the Michael Vick situation. He can have a second rebirth, you know, and you know, they give him some talent, you know, get some talent around him, you know, keep him healthy, get him a great offensive line. You know, he'll be fine. I really do. I think he'll be fine. They got a good coach up there. I was actually happy to see him come back. Matt Rule is a, you know, is, excuse me, not Matt Rule. Cam is a huge asset to Carolina, you know, Panthers football, their fans and the organization. So, you know, when I saw him out for as long as he was out, I was like, man, he's better than a lot of these guys out here, you know. I
Mhm.
mean, Tennessee could have used him. There's a lot of teams. I mean, the offense really didn't compliment him in New England, and I've kind of felt like that wasn't going to work out. But then, yet he came to New England. They had like what 9 or 10 stars to opt out that year
Mhm.
in 2020, and they still won what 6 or 7 games. People fail to realize that they
Yep.
still won like 7 games with like half of their offense out and majority of the defense was out. You know that opted out because of COVID. So you know, people don't look at that and like, man, they won 6 or 7 games and they should have been what 2 and something, 3. But that's where good coaching comes into play. You know, Josh McDaniels and Bill Belichick. That's a, I mean, you know, that's a hell of a team. But that wasn't the quarterback that they prefer, and I know, and their coaching style that complement Cam, but Carolina coaching style do, you know, that type of quarterback. So again, I'm happy for Cam, man. I'm thinking he's gonna be all right. It just depends on how moving forward how the team helps him succeed.
Yeah, you know, you were on the phone with me that day, and I literally felt like I can't even explain how I felt because I was so excited about him coming back. I really was just like, oh, wait a minute, like they're giving him an interview, and before I could share all the news, next thing I know, he was signed. I mean, I literally was screaming. I mean, you saw the raw emotion of how happy I
Mhm.
was because I know a lot of Panther fans were absolutely devastated when Cam lost. Now, we do have a toss up, you know, like you do with any organization where some people are, well, this person played this way and we're good without them. But for me, because I, you know, have the Carolina Panthers fan page, I saw the mass exodus. We went from being about, I think it was 13 members from hitting the 10,000 mark to losing
Mhm.
about 2,000 ladies out of our fan club because Facebook shares demographics. They literally put the down arrow -2,000. And I was just like, you're kidding me because people love Cam. He has a comeback story. I have watched his interviews. He's definitely more humble. So for people who said, you know, he gave the theatrics, he gave the dab, he gave the Superman, he gave the first down signs, you know, that's just who he was. But he
Mhm.
did play very highly emotional before. I see a much more calmer version of him. I think he is grateful. I think that he is humbled because he knows what it's like to not have a job, not one time, but 2 times, and to know that your home has received you back is just a great comeback story. So it's one that not only the Panthers fans, Panther Nation is following, but also the NFL world as a whole because everybody knows who Cam Newton is.
Yeah,
All right.
absolutely.
Yeah. So I'm definitely hoping we can flip the script, so to speak, and go ahead and win out. And what if we could be like, I know I told you this before, but I'm telling you here that we're on the air. What if we could be like the Braves, who in July, the Atlanta Braves were under 500. We're not even supposed to be in the playoffs. They come back, they win it all. Like it could happen any given Sunday. So last night's game against the Raiders and the Cowboys.
Mhm.
So many calls against the Cowboys. I saw that there were 28 penalties against
Mhm.
the Cowboys. The brawl that happened with 2 players ejected, one from both teams. And then there was a subsequent brawl after the game. Uh, between teams. I don't know. I just, as they say, caught the airs of it. But
Mhm.
I mean, what do you think about those two teams? I didn't even know they had a rivalry.
Yeah, I think they do. I mean, they're two solid fan bases. Um, I mean, again, again, whoever's the healthiest towards the end is going to be the most successful. The Cowboys wasn't healthy last night, so they didn't get a chance to give their all. And granted, I'm a Giants fan, so I'm not a big Cowboys fan,
Yeah,
but I have to be fair. They didn't have all the pieces, just like, the Raiders were missing a few pieces. You know, Waller went out with a knee injury. I want to say the first or second, I think it was like the second quarter. He's a beast. He was out. They had a few key missing, few key guys gone. I mean, the whole situation with Henry Ruggs. I think he was their leading receiver before the accident happened.
that
You
was
know,
tragic. That's
that was
tragic.
tragic. That was tough. But they're down him. He's not on the team no more, of course. So you didn't really get a fair assessment of both teams. But I mean, really, to be honest with you, you had a lot of guys that were, because the Cowboys won that full stretch. You had a lot of guys that was exposed. That next man up theory. A lot of teams say it, next man up, but you gotta actually, those next men up gotta actually play. And those guys, I mean, that receiver back there, I mean, he was shell shocked. I think after that first pass interference call.
He
So it's
was
like,
shell shocked.
and Derek Carr knew exactly what to do. He targeted him every time. The Cowboys made a lot of silly, it was just like the Giants. They just made a lot of silly decisions last night. The silly penalties, the holding penalties, the pass interference. Football is strategic. You got to know when you got to basically got to know when more than how. If you understand where I'm coming from, you got to know when more than how.
Definitely.
So they were playing. They were refereeing a tight game. So the Cowboys got to get back healthy. You've seen what they were made of with all the injuries. I mean, last week in Kansas City, they were down Amari Cooper. CeeDee Lamb had to step up. He got hurt. They're not going to be like that. Trust me, when they're at full strength, they're impossible to beat. So the Cowboys are not going anywhere. They're going to win the NFC East. That's just what it's.
Wow.
I mean, unfortunately, that's just what's going to happen. I'm a Giants fan, and that's coming from my mouth, but I'm honest. They're going to win the NFC East this year, whether we like it or not. Okay. And it just depends on who, and if they're healthy enough, if they can stay healthy, they got to go. If they have to go to a Green Bay or Arizona or LA, they can give those guys a game, but they have to be careful, you know. Um, but they have to stay healthy. So I can't really give a honest assessment without seeing them at full strength. We all seen what they're capable of at full strength, So that's where I am with them. The Raiders are just a team. We beat the Raiders this year, so I'm going to brag about that. But the Raiders are a team who are trying to find their mojo, and I think they're finding it. Don't be surprised if you don't see them later on down the line either.
Well, that's good about the Raiders. I have kinfolk that play on there. Shout out to
Yeah,
Brandon Parker.
yeah.
But shifting gears just a little bit, the Browns. The Browns were like this team that I felt like they were coming in. They
Mhm,
had shedded OBJ. Should I say that? The OBJ curse. They had
mhm,
shedded him. So I felt like going forward, they were going to be doing really well. But now they're at the bottom of the division. They're strong 6-5, but they're still at the bottom because they have really strong contenders in that AFC division. And I saw that as of 10 hours ago, according to Jake Trotter on ESPN News, the Browns are activating Kareem Hunt. So, and the right tackle, Conklin, is now off of injury reserve. So the Browns may be making a running back for the contentions of that division. They
mhm.
have a schedule coming up. They lost to the Chiefs. They won against the Texans, won against the Bears, won against the Vikings, lost against Chargers, Cardinals, won with the Broncos, and lost with the Steelers. And now they have a game coming up against the Ravens. who Lamar Jackson is an absolute beast. That O-line looks good with him as long as they are solid in protecting him and not letting him get sacked. Baltimore looks good to make a run for the AFC, in my opinion. They're always a solid team. Lamar has always played really good ball. He's always remained pretty healthy. And anytime a quarterback can remain healthy, that's truly dependent upon their O-line. You know, you're only as good as your protection. You come out that pocket, you try to make a run for it, or you get sacked, there's gaps in your O-line, your secondary is looking horrible, then you're in trouble. But Baltimore looks pretty solid. And I think that they may be the upper hand against the Browns on Sunday's matchup. They play on Sunday Night Football on NBC at 8:20 Eastern Standard Time. If you're just tuning in, this is my relaunch of All Things Football from a Lady's Perspective. I'm Sonia Pearson Anderson, and I'm joined by NYG for Life Atlanta, New York Giants fan, Mr. Anthony Fernandez, as my special guest tonight, relaunching us. And we're just talking about NFL news. You see, he's a big Ohio State fan for tomorrow's game against Michigan. I'll let you talk about that. I don't know too much about anything other than UGA, but I'll let you talk about tomorrow's little plug there tomorrow, Mr. Fernandez with Ohio. What time is that game?
12 o'clock.
12 noon. Where are they playing?
We're at the Big House. We're playing in Michigan.
Okay, in Michigan. And what's Ohio's rank right now? What are they looking like playoff wise?
Well, we're second in the BCS. So you got Georgia, Ohio State, Alabama, and Cincinnati. We're gonna win this game.
All right.
All right. In a nutshell, we're gonna win this game.
How many more weeks do you all have in the season? Is it kind of close like the NFL, or do you guys wrap up at the end of this year?
I think this is we have this game, and then we have the Big Ten championship game. I believe we're definitely going to be in that. That's going to be next week, and then I believe the playoffs start after that. So that's going to be interesting. We just have to win out. We have to win. We have to beat Michigan. We got to go into the Big Ten championship, win that game. And then sky's the limit for Ohio State. Our offense has gotten better over time. They didn't look as sharp, towards the beginning of the season, starting off in Minnesota. We had to find our bearings, lost to Oregon. That was our only loss. And then you've seen Oregon took that on my college football fans. They took a huge, ugly loss to Utah this Saturday, which helped us and harmed us at the same time, but we was able to move up to number 2. So I'm looking forward. I think 2 plays 4 if I'm going to jump ahead. So it would most likely be Cincinnati and Ohio State if the rankings stay where it is. And then you got Alabama and Georgia. And then I would love to, if I had to pick those guys, it would have to be Ohio State and Georgia at the end, for sure.
That's going to be a showdown. And I would not be shocked if both of those teams are the last 2 standing. Just think of the exhilaration that will follow both of those fan bases, the Ohio State and UGA Bulldogs. Whew, I got to definitely be on standby for that. UGA plays on tomorrow as well. So like Mr. Fernandez said, it's quite a lot of stuff going on with these top Big Ten competitors. So thanks for that college plug. We'll be sharing more college news as Mr. Fernandez joins me for additional shows in a future time. All right, we're going to toss it back to the NFL real quick. The Atlanta Falcons. Let's talk about where we both live. Not a team of either one of ours, but we must talk about them. Matt Ryan has a contract that is not ending until 2023. So Falcon fans who have been less than happy with Mr. Ryan, who have been begging the Falcons to draft a quarterback every single draft for the last 2 or 3 years, ever since that horrible 28-3 part-time game. You guys got like 2 more years to wait, 2 full years. So it's just like, wow, is this really what we're doing now? They got Todd Gurley came down here, got hurt. He's gone. He's a free agent somewhere. He's not even signed. I mean, what's the deal with Atlanta? Why is it every year they start out looking good? And you can't really say it's injuries. Calvin Ridley's not playing. The NFL has taken a very high awareness approach to mental health awareness. And Calvin has said that he would like to take this time off to address and possibly remedy any issues he is having with his mental health. And I definitely applaud that. You know, I've always said it, everybody has mental health issues. It's just how we choose to deal with them, face them, and address them, and if we're open or not with it. But we wish Calvin the best. Definitely applaud him for taking that high approach, because if your mental health is off, nothing else matters. Your mind is the strongest thing you have, and it can catapult your entire function of your body as a whole. It make you absolutely sick. So he's taking an off approach, and you disappeared off the camera, Mr. Fernandez. Are you there? Yeah, so you're off the camera again.
Oh,
Did you
oh.
did
Can
you
you hear me?
fall? Yes,
Yeah.
but you disappeared off the camera.
Yeah, my AirPod went dead.
Oh, that's okay. That's okay. Just making
Yeah.
sure you're still here with us. So what's Atlanta's problem? Is there a solution?
It is. I mean, but you can't blame Matt. It's another example of why it is so very important to have a solid offensive line. You know,
Right.
Matt Ryan is not a bad quarterback. But I know people like to pass and shift the blame on him, but I couldn't give all the blame to him. I mean, the offensive line is terrible. The Falcons, I don't think have ever really had an elite defense. If they did have an elite defense, they don't lose 28. I mean, they don't have a 28-3 lead in the in the Super Bowl. The Falcons have never really had a balanced team. You can't blame Matt. Matt has went through a ton of offensive coordinators. Now, Matt Ryan is not a quarterback to really take charge of an offense. He needs a really good offensive coordinator to tell him what to do, and he'll be fine. But you got to give him weapons. But again, it just leads to him not having a really good offensive line. You know, if your team does not have an offensive line, you don't have those kind of trenches positions filled. You know, you're not going to be a good team. You send that to New England, you know, a team like that, he'll be successful. He'll probably win another MVP. But the Falcons are failing him. And the Falcons have been failing Matt for a long time. So you can't really blame Matt. You can't put it on him. They're just struggling in every aspect. You draft a tight end. I mean, granted, he's one of the best probably gadget guys that came out of the draft last year. Kyle Pitts is a beast, but do you really need a tight end? You know, I mean, granted, he's not necessarily a tight end guy you can move all around the place, but do you really need a guy like that? When your offensive line is struggling, your defensive line is struggling, you know, I mean, if I'm the Falcons, I know they've went offensive line, you know, I think it was maybe the last before that. Go offensive line again. You got to get protected from him. And they get the ball out and get it to the guys that need to get, you know, that can, you know, make the play. But to be honest with you, I can't blame Matt Ryan. I can't blame Matt Ryan at all. I can't. I can't shift all the blame on him.
So they have Josh Rosen. He's been in the league like 3 years now. It's comical, honestly, but it's probably only comical because they're in my division. And so I kind of, you know, poke fun with the division rivals or whatever. But the last game that they played, when all three quarterbacks came in, and every one of them threw consecutive interceptions to end the game. Like they literally had like, what was the last 5 seconds? And Arthur Smith just literally brought Matt Ryan in. Matt threw an interception. He brought Josh Rosen in. He threw an interception. They even brought their third string in. He threw an interception. And so it was just like, wow, like how is this even happening that none of the quarterbacks for them are solid. So when you look at the passer rating, he does have a really good passer rating. He does have that, that high quarterback ranking, so to speak. But it just looks like in their performance, they're 4-6 right now overall. What do the Falcons have to do? Matt Ryan has 2,427 yards passing this for his record. He now has a quarterback ranking of 54.9 because of the interceptions. Cordell Patterson, who is a good asset to the Falcons, has 303 yards. His highest carries were 77. He's had 2 touchdowns. Now, Matt Ryan has had 15 touchdowns this year. Kyle Pitts has their highest receiving yards with 635, but they are ranked 20th for passing yards in the league, 30th for rushing yards. And remember, there's only 32 teams, so they're almost at the bottom with that. They're tied for number 27 with average points per game, which is only 17. And they're ranked 31st out of 32 teams for people putting up points against them, 28. On average, teams have put up 28 points against them, which is almost the worst. And it's probably Detroit is probably number 32. So can the Falcons get back on track? I mean, is it any help for them?
This year, maybe not. If they can start making the right roster moves starting next season, yeah, they can. Any team can. It's just that you got to make the right decision. I mean, you got to make the right moves on the offensive and defensive side of the ball. The offseason is, off-season free agency and draft class is going to make a huge difference, and it's going to dictate whether you're going to be a good team or not. You got to assess what you failed at during the season, and you got to improve on that. Right now, the Falcons, if they're going to hold on to Matt, I know they're tied up. The money is tied up with Matt. So they have to kind of hold on to him because I don't think another team is going to take on that contract that he has. So it's going to be hard to trade him. You got to hold on to him. So if that's the case, if you want to be successful, you got to put pieces around him to make him successful. All of those stats you were naming off just goes to tell you that there's no protection. Running back can't run the ball. Matt can't get the ball out in time. And there's no protection. There's no offensive line. I can't say it. No more than I've been saying it. Your offensive line dictates how far your team goes. Your defensive line dictates how far your team goes. Your team goes. How balanced you are, offense and defense, is going to dictate how successful you are. And then after that, you still got to draft depth. In today's league, everybody is. I mean, people are so injury prone.
So injury prone.
So it depends on who can step up. So you got to get guys that's behind them that can fill those voids. So it's just tough right now. The NFL is such a tough place to win. The team with the most depth, the team with the most, more balanced team, the team that got the trenches filled, they're going to beat the talented teams with all the superstars on them. In a 4-quarter playoff game, they're going to beat them. So it just depends. I really feel bad for the Falcons. I root for the Falcons because they've had a bad spill over the last few years. And I know you're a Carolina fan. Y'all had a bad spill in that
we
Super
did
Bowl against Denver, which I haven't forgot about that either. But the Falcons had
nobody will. Nobody's gonna forget that heartbreaker.
Yeah, Cam not going for the ball when he fumbled. It was just like, oh. One of the best teams in the league at the time. But again, I look for guys like you guys in Atlanta because you've been there and you smelled it, you've tasted it, but it was snatched away at the last minute. That's tough. So,
yeah. Atlanta
to get it back.
Yeah, Atlanta and Carolina have been twice, and neither one of us brought home the brass. I'm definitely hoping my Panthers bring it home first, because I don't want us to be the only ringless team in the division. Speaking of ringless teams, the New York Jets, someone we rarely talk about, going back up north real quick with that AFC division. Zach Wilson, not a lot of yards this year, only 1,168. The Jets stinking it up all over again. Michael Carter. I mean, that team, every single year, they're one of the highest drafted teams, but they don't do anything with their drafts. They're almost like how the Browns were until the Browns realized that they need to go and use their drafts for veteran players as opposed to loading their roster with rookies and trying to train them. They finally started trading some of their draft selections to get veteran players. And that's how the Browns were able to shift their dynamics. What is going on in New York? 2-8, AFC East, fourth every single year, pretty much, the Jets.
Horrible team. I can't even cover that up. I mean, the way they did Bill Belichick, the way they did Bill Belichick, a long time ago, and Bill Parcells and all those guys. The Jets have never been a solid team. Never really. I mean, they had a run when they had Brilliant Edwards and Mark Sanchez. I believe they beat New England that year, and Rex Ryan was the head coach. That was the most exciting they've been in a long time. They beat New England that year and lost to Pittsburgh, I think, in the AFC Championship. Had a chance to make it to the Super Bowl. After those initial 2 years, they went back to being a horrible organization. They're just terrible. The owner's horrible, always been horrible. Until that gets new ownership, basically, new ownership, they need the clean house from the top down, not from the bottom up, from the top down. They're not going to be a good team. They're not going to be a good team until they change. Zach Wilson, you can't blame him either. He came in, just like any other quarterback, Justin Fields, Zach Wilson, they came in as rookies. You can't expect too much from them. I think people fail to realize that a rookie is not going to save your organization. A rookie is only going to give your organization the hope to be good eventually. You barely have a lot of guys coming in that are rookies who's just going to, you're going to have the rookie of the years. You're going to have guys that make statements, but you need a team around them, to help them build. You can't just depend on one guy to change the team, especially a guy coming out of college, coming into an entirely different league. You don't know what he's going to do. You don't know what he's capable of. And then he's coming into an entitled, a different look. You got to give that guy at least 2 or 3 seasons to really get acclimated to the NFL system. So, for people that are depending on draft picks to save their team, that's when you fail. You go wrong. Because like this guy, every time this guy's not going to come and say your organization is horrible. It's just going to put that kid in a horrible position, especially in a quarterback position, wide receiver position, single positions like that. You just putting them in a bad predicament. The Jets can go number 1 for the next 4 or 5 years, and they're still going to be horrible until they change the dynamic of that team. The dynamics have to change. The principle. They can go through as many coaches. I like Coach Salah. He seems like a very energetic guy, but he also put himself in a tough position. He went to an organization that he has to rebuild. So the pressure is on him. That's not an organization that's going to allow him. A lot of those organizations don't allow you to do, the things you want to do. I mean, look at the Giants.
Come in and revamp, right? Your way.
Your way. Joe Judge came into an already Daniel Jones pick. That was a gentleman pick. And Daniel Jones pick. I mean, can't blame Joe Judge. I mean, what are you going to do? Get rid of the kid? You got to go through so many hoops and turns to get rid of a guy like that and say, okay, I want to get my own guy. That's going to be tough. That's going to be tough because a lot of these guys, ownership is sold on a lot of these guys, and a lot of them don't want to ownership in general manager, but a lot of them don't want to look stupid. So they're like, no, hold on to him. He's going to be good, and he's stinking up the place. Daniel Jones is not a good quarterback.
They put so much money and stock into these players. They don't want to see their investment go down the tube. And honestly, everybody is literally looking for the Tom Brady way, how he came in. We talked about it earlier, how he literally built his own system in Tampa Bay, took them from pretty much the bottom of the division to the top of the entire NFC and to the Super Bowl. Speaking of that, Aaron Rodgers, there was a lot of mess going on with Green Bay in the offseason with rumors of Aaron Rodgers possibly being moved out of Green Bay because he was wanting out. We know that Aaron was the reason why Mike McCarthy was released a couple of years back, even on Aaron's birthday. We know how it goes down with the quarterback coaching drama. Aaron Rodgers this year, they are 8-3, first in the NFC North. It looks like they are untouchable in that division. How solid are they as contenders for the Super Bowl against teams like Dallas and Arizona, and even Russell Wilson in Seattle? Is Seattle even in the run this year?
Seattle's going to be in the run this year. You can never count out Green Bay. Green Bay is going to be there. Green Bay is going to be there. But let's go back to that. I mean, you talked about Tom Brady, but we don't talk enough about, Aaron Rodgers. We don't talk enough about Russell Wilson. We don't talk enough about those guys who weren't first round draft picks. Dak Prescott. You don't talk a lot about those guys. A lot of people are looking for, a lot of teams are looking for quarterbacks in the first round, and a lot of them don't have to be in the first round. There's a lot of guys that fell. Russell Wilson, Dak Prescott, Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady. Those guys weren't first round draft picks. Those guys are second, thirds, and fourths, and Tom Brady even further down than that. Russell Wilson as well. So it just depends on your scouting and how well of a team you can coach. But going back to that, Aaron Rodgers is always going to be there. Green Bay is always going to be a feared team. You can never count them out. Seattle was struggling. I don't know if they're going to be there, and I think Russell Wilson is signed to a long-term contract, so I don't think he's going anywhere anytime soon. But they're struggling right now. The NFC West is low. I don't think you still have Arizona, San Francisco. The AFC West is loaded. Seattle. I don't think Seattle's going to have enough to catch up to those guys.
Wow.
So
does Russell Wilson stay? There was a lot of talk about him going to New Orleans. And honestly, Jameis Winston, in my opinion, is not the answer for the Saints. Even though he's injured right now, he didn't play his best. He did have that big blowout game against Green Bay in the season opener, but he just is not my answer for New Orleans. So do they really try to court Russell Wilson in? Russell was interested in New Orleans and actually named them and Dallas as two of the top choices that he had if he was to leave Seattle.
I think Jameis is the choice for New Orleans. Let me get that correct. I like Jameis Winston. I think you give him a year or two to get acclimated to that system, he'll be fine. He's done very well. Before he got hurt, he was doing pretty good. I mean, his turnover ratio has went down significantly. Russell Wilson, I would love the Giants to take a look at him. If I'm the Giants, I would be willing to buy him out to get him. I think that's the only that makes sense for him to go to. New Orleans needs to hold on to Jameis Winston. I really do feel like they do. They got a quarterback in Jameis. Got a great long ball. He's down a few guys. You get him a number one. I don't know if Michael Thomas is going to be there next year. He was out all season. You get him some weapons back to what New Orleans is probably even better. So no, you don't get rid of Jameis Winston. And if I'm Seattle, then I don't want to get rid of Russell. But if I have to, then I'm gonna ask for the house. I want everything. Cat, the dog, the house, the car, the keys, TV.
So I know the NFC East is a toss-up. Washington football team, are they a contender? I mean, they look really good, honestly. Ron has done a great job with that team. They're not even a wild card contender?
I don't think so. No, Washington to me personally has been disappointing. Washington is supposed to be a lot better than what they are. They had one of the best defenses on paper going into the league. Going into this season, everybody's so amped about them. Washington should be tied with Dallas, if not better than Dallas right now. And they was just a huge disappointment. I know my guy Chase Young from the Ohio State University I know he tore his ACL, but that defense is so loaded. But they haven't performed the way and that's the reason why I don't think they went after a quarterback. They had such a great defense on paper. They were like, man, we can win. We're the Tampa Bay back in 02. What was that, 02 or 1 we're going to be amazing. And they just have been disappointing. So, the games they fought, they had to fight to stay alive in those games. The whole Carolina game is great. But you look at their record, they won 4 games up until now. They should be a lot better than what they are. So if I'm Ron Rivera, I'm looking at changing, moving some pieces around, get me a quarterback. I think they have a quarterback in Tyler Heineke. They need to put some more pieces around him to be successful with that defense. I'm blowing it up. Like, dude, you guys supposed to be a lot better than what you are right now. A lot better.
Right.
You know, Washington was like, man, we were like not fearful, but man, Washington, so they haven't been that. They haven't been that. So, you know, you look at the dynamics. Yeah, it was a great game they played against you guys, but you guys should have won that game. That all hands down. Shouldn't have been close.
Yeah, I don't know what happened with that, but yeah, we didn't win it.
Yeah, but Washington, I think moving forward, they should be all right. They got to make some changes. Again, there's not a lot of. I mean, it's going to be a lot of teams there. You know, it's going to take a while. Giants is going to take some time to fix. They got to make the right choices. They're at a turning point right now where they can be a good team if they decide to be. Washington, Philly, you know, Dallas. Philly is at a turning point now. They won maybe 5 games, so they're 2 behind Dallas, right?
Right.
And we played them Sunday, so that's going to be a great matchup. The NFC East is also Dallas is in the league right now, and I don't see that changing at all.
So we have talked quite a bit tonight. I'm so glad that everyone was able to join us. We'll be doing this again probably next week. I'll be having Mr. Fernandez back from time to time. I don't know who my guest will be next week, but it may be Mr. Fernandez again, because this is just how we talk. I like to end tonight with a message and then a feel-good story. Tonight there was a shooting this afternoon, actually, in Durham, North Carolina, at the local mall there. I'm so grateful to God that my sister and my niece were safely evacuated from that situation. I can't tell you how I feel to be personally touched by such a travesty, but I'm asking everyone tonight who knows a word of prayer to pray for the 3 victims, including a 10-year-old who was shot, and for all of those persons who were part of that fiasco, who are possibly suffering from any mental, physical, or spiritual ailments on this evening regarding that. I pray for whole healing and total restoration for all involved, and for full prosecution of those persons that are responsible for that. I'd like to end tonight with an NFL feel-good story. The Buffalo Bills' Josh Allen, quarterback number 17, recently unveiled a tribute to his grandmother, Patricia Allen. In honor of the Buffalo Bills, she recently passed away. There was a fan that saw that they donated to the local hospital there. It starts with an OH, I can't pronounce it. It's Ohio Hospital or something. Was where a fan saw that Josh's grandmother had passed the night before the game and went on Instagram and Twitter and asked everyone to donate $17 in honor of Josh's grandmother, Patricia Allen. Well, word spread like wildfire, and they now have over $75 million that were raised on social media in honor of his late grandmother, Patricia Allen. There are some good things that exist in this world, and we continue to solicit prayers for Josh and his family in honor and memory of his beautiful grandmother, Patricia Allen. This is All Things Football. From a lady's perspective, Mr. Fernandez, thank you so much for joining me on tonight. We wish everyone Godspeed, be well, be safe, enjoy your holiday season, and good night.